I haven't even got to who is Adel, so let's talk about Adel. We are a blockchain innovator. We are an incubator for blockchain innovation. We saw an opportunity 18 months ago to create a platform in order to incubate projects, in a sense that there are a lot of proof of concepts out there. There are a lot of ideas. The market is still immature, but by the time the time is right to create an incubator, from everybody else's perspective, then you're 3 years late. So everybody's saying, you're the first to do this, it's early. I'm expecting to hear that, because from a consumer perspective, it is early, but from an investor, from a entrepreneurial perspective, it's the right timing. In fact, we could even be 18 months late, but it took us 18 months to get where we are today. We want to be like a Kickstarter, so we crowdfund projects, but we're not just a crowdfunder, we are an equity funder. Investors will have an equity stake in these projects that they will create themselves. Okay? We are the first KYC, CTF, AML compliant ICO in the world. Okay, so what is KYC? CT. Okay, let's go to AML. That's the easy one. AML. Anti-money laundering. CTF. Counter-terrorism financing. Yeah. We registered our company in the Isle of Man. They're our forward-thinking government in terms of blockchain and cryptocurrency. They took us with open arms, let's say, and we work with them very closely. In fact, we're going there in 2 weeks to do an advisory council with the regulatory body to talk about future ICOs. So we are a collaborative and a community-based incubator, which means that we have a democratic voting system in terms of incubating projects and voting on which projects are chosen. And we're a centralized, decentralized model. And what that means is that blockchain itself has this ideology of decentralization and stateless. But the threat there is that you run into some weird projects. That even the Isle of Man is calling us and saying, we're getting companies that want to do their internet initial coin offering here, and this is really kind of fishy stuff. I said, yeah, you're going to get a lot of those. So what we've created is this centralized, decentralized aspect of blockchain. And what that means is that you have basically blockchain people that are very staunch blockchain advocates. We call them blockchain liberalists, right? Completely stateless, no control, let us do what we want, whether it's legal or illegal, just like the internet. You have a lot of funny stuff going on the internet. And then you have the left side, where you have basically complete control, centralization, and governing bodies and regulatory frameworks. And we believe we're right in the middle, right? We're not trying to be one or the other. We believe that there's a spectrum of players that are going to work well in the blockchain space. And we want to make sure that projects are legal, ethical, and moral. So we centralize the filtering mechanism to say, okay, this looks legitimate, okay, and there's no funny business going on. So we will then pursue an idea documentation. We will pursue the business plan with the community, and then the community ultimately votes whether they want the project to go forward or not. So it's democratic, but we will do the first filter. So we feel we have a responsibility to the brand, to all the investors, and we feel we have a responsibility to the blockchain as a brand itself, because we think that companies like us that will have these type of frameworks will basically help legitimize blockchain into the mainstream. Every project that is immoral, illegal, will drag blockchain down. Definitely people that are saying, well, I want my anonymity, I'm not going to invest in Adel, that's fine. There's a portion that say, okay, I will identify myself. I understand the importance of it. There are blockchain projects all over the world that are being shut down because of anonymity, KYC, and not meeting regulatory compliance. Everybody's money's gone. Everybody's money's gone. $16 million here, $10 million there. Oh, I invested in this project. Oh, they shut down, or some government shut them down. The money's gone. Right? So what's the point? What's the point of being shut down? I mean, there's absolutely no benefit of that. The nice thing is that in any democratic system, I believe the intelligence of the body that is deciding ups the game of that democratic platform, right? And the fact that we are have a platform of investors that have put in a minimum of 1 Bitcoin, which is $2,500. After the ICO, the minimum is now increased to 2 Bitcoin, which is about $5,000 to join the community. You already have a vested interest of a community that wants to do great projects. And we did this minimum because we don't want to have people coming in from the public, seeing a business plan, stealing it, taking it to another country and duplicating it. Everybody else gets compromised. And in any security framework, you're not removing the risk, you're mitigating the risk. So we have a code of conduct which people assign, confidentiality. We have this minimum in terms of entry into the community, and we have also IT security policy of public, internal use, confidential and secret information. So, you know, we're trying to mitigate the risk, but and other measures probably will come into play, because what ultimately we're doing is we're wikiing the whole business planning process. So everybody in the community will be creating the business plan together. We're gonna have champions that basically are gonna hone in all the information. We're gonna have some visionaries that basically can step up the game. Because the difference between Wikipedia and other wiki processes and this process is that we're not documenting factual information. We're trying to create a business plan of a visionary idea into the future, right? So some people will be adding factual information, such as, you know, the financial details and maybe the regulatory compliance, but then there has to be people that basically see where this project needs to go into the next 3 years, and not everybody has that capability. You know, I have people sending me emails saying, you know, I see that you have this incubator, can you send us $1 million and here's our business plan, right? And I have to explain, we're not a venture capital, we are community-based and we're democratic voting and so on. So we want to be flexible in terms of seeing how this plays out, because we don't know how it's going to play out. Nobody's done this before. The visionary aspect of a business plan is very important to us, and not everybody has that perspective. What we believe in the next year, as we start building business plans, we're going to have a whole community of people that are going to be experts in building business plans. Like literally, we're going to have a cookie cutter method of building business plans one after another, and then starting to execute on projects. And everybody's going to become an expert, just like, you know, there's people that created businesses on eBay and Amazon. This infrastructure that we're creating, we think there's going to be this cascading secondary market of experts in the business planning stage, and people like that would be interesting to see how we can bring them in. We believe that blockchain will change the world. We think that it's going to change your lives. It's going to change. You know, we've created we have about 25 projects in the pipeline, and people are coming with ideas, like great ideas. But the problem is that people that have ideas, they don't have the resources to create companies, and they don't have resources to create even a business plan. Right? They may be a developer. They have no idea about any other aspect of the business plan. So what they do is they go straight from the development stage to building a company, and they work backwards to all the stuff that they didn't do because they didn't do a business plan, and they're making mistakes. In Adel, we're going to have lawyers, we're going to have accountants, we're going to have bankers. They're already contacting me saying, you know, I have banking background, I live in Singapore, you know, and I really want to help incubate these projects. So everybody's going to be able to contribute in a different manner, and like I said, we're going to wiki this whole process. So it's going to be great.
Nice.
Yeah. Let me explain what an initial coin offering is. It's a crowd fund. It's open to the public. It funds new ventures. You seed fund the launching of startups. You're really just investing in an idea. Different from an IPO, where a company may exist for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and then they go public, and they have this legacy record, and they're now going to be listed. The ICOs are investing in just the idea stage. Typically, you're introducing a new coin to the market. So we introduced what we call the Adelphoi. That's our ticker, ADL. And you sell the coin for Bitcoin. It ultimately secures millions of euros. ICOs have come up since around 2013, 2014, and have raised a lot of money. They're deregulated right now, but you have governments like the Isle of Man, which will bring in companies and create an established LLC and allow for these ICOs to occur in a deregulated fashion. So we created our entity in the Isle of Man in order to legally run our ICO. In any regulatory framework, how do you create a regulation that fuels innovation and doesn't stop or stifle the innovation? The problem with that whole scenario, architecting that regulatory framework, is you don't know until you look backwards whether you've stopped innovation or you've fueled it, right? So this is their struggle right now, and that's why they want us to come to the Isle of Man in order to, what are the steps that should be taken in order to help innovation move forward, because they see a lot of money floating around in this space, and how can they play a role? Because ultimately their competition are other governments like Singapore and the Netherlands and other that are quite open to these new technologies from existing in their country. And then you have other countries where you just see it as a threat because they don't understand what's going on, right? So rather than learning about what's going on, they just say it's not possible. There's no easy answer to that. It's really hard to say what the regulators need to do. I mean, KYC and AML is kind of the obvious one, but how they regulate ICOs is going to be interesting. I mean, we knocked out probably 95% of the market in our ICO just by being AML compliant. 95% we probably lost, maybe 90% if I'm conservative. The reality is you're launching an ICO to do a startup, or you're launching your startup and then you do your ICO. But both scenarios are basically happening right now. Our ADL is a currency in our community, and that coin will be used to buy equity ownership in the companies, and that'll be a second phase for us to create the legal structure in order to do that, and we need a license for that in a separate legal framework. We're going to talk to the government in the Isle of Man about that. There are many trading platforms where you can just trade your coins with tokens and so on, and that's going like crazy right now, the whole frenzy of trading. We want to be able to just allow those members that have built the business plan from idea to business planning and the execution, they have the right then to invest in those projects. So there's two types of people in our community. We have 590 stakeholders that have bought coins above or below 1 Bitcoin or 2 Bitcoins. And then there's 128 of those are members. And that's the initial number after the ICO. As things get traded on the exchanges, we're going to get more members, because we didn't even allow the Americans to participate because they have this FinCEN requirement. We weren't allowed to include them into the ICO. So, but with the coin being on exchanges, they can buy the coin on the exchanges and become members after the ICO. We're on 3 exchanges. We're on the NXT Asset Exchange, CryptoDAO, and Stocks Exchange. We did a 1-month-long ICO. We had a slow start. In the first 48 hours, we got a little less than 100,000 euros. We put a lot of barriers. We had the KYC requirement. We took out the Americans completely from the ICO. So we realized this was going to be an uphill battle. But then we said, okay, let's push forward, because we have a great idea. We have this great platform. Let's just keep pushing forward. Bitcoin went in double in value from the beginning of our ICO to the end. So we were also kind of lucky from that standpoint. And we just did marketing. We were social media. Every day we're announcing what we're doing. In the end, we got to almost 1 million. In fact, actually, about a week after the ICO, the currency exchange brought us over 1 million. Because the whole thing about ICOs is that it's kind of an opening weekend, like a movie. If the opening weekend fails for a movie, then the rest of it being in the theaters is you just discount it. We're an incubator for blockchain innovation. What our minimum was €1 million, which at the time was 900 Bitcoins. Yeah. And we got to 430 Bitcoins, which ended up being €1 million anyway, because of how things doubled in price. But the goal was 10 million. And the reason is because when you're an incubator, the more capital you raise, the more projects you can have. Yeah. So guys were saying, why don't you have a maximum? All these ICOs have maximums. You don't have a maximum, it's bad. We had a minimum of 1 million, but we didn't have a maximum. And I said, look, if we can incubate 10 projects, then we'll incubate 10. If we can incubate 50 projects, we'll incubate 50. If we can do 500, there's 100,000 projects on Kickstarter now. I mean, we can be that type of incubator. If we didn't have KYC compliance, we would have got to 10 million immediately. If we allowed the Americans, we probably would have doubled, tripled that. If we were on the Ethereum platform, we probably even had more. We have this pipeline of idea to project supply chain, we call it. Okay. And it's going to take us 6 months to build the first business plan. So we're not going to be launching projects until next year. And even the projects that are launched next year will take 2 to 3 years to generate revenue. We're going to do 6 modules, and one is going to be a collaboration module, which will be like a Slack-based module, which is also going to be a wiki process for doing the plans. There's going to be a voting module. There's going to be a market module to put on jobs, because everybody that participates in the business planning process and incubating projects can also be employed in the future projects. So there's an employment aspect. Of course, we're only going to employ people if they're qualified. If in the community, if we don't have those employees that are qualified, we go externally. And then we're going to have a project module, which will be a real-time, well, not maybe like completely real-time, but it'll be a status report of what's happening in the projects, direct connection with the people that are running the project, KPIs, key performance indicators, cash flow, and that sort of thing. We want to have that transparency. So about a week later, we got over €1 million, 590 participants. And because we didn't make our minimum, we had to go for a vote. We basically said, if we're not going to get to 900 Bitcoins, we're going to ask the members that have over 1 Bitcoin to vote on whether you want to go forward with the project. Luckily, we had 97% said yes. And this is based on the weighted bonus of BTCs. Even if we did it on count, we still had a majority in both cases. So everybody wanted to move forward. We gave about 6 refunds back. Another 6, they didn't pass AML requirements. We had 127 over 1 Bitcoin. We wanted to have a diverse membership. That was the goal, but we didn't put any restrictions in terms of maximums. ICO participants had a minimum of 1 Bitcoin to join the community. So now it's 2 Bitcoin. But if you sell all your coins below that 1 Bitcoin value in Adelphoi, then you have a week to top up again. Otherwise, you then go from the 1 Bitcoin minimum to 2 if you lose your membership. We actually only had the Chinese translation of our website on the 24th of May. I wish I did 2 months earlier, because it probably, the guys were saying, don't worry about China, it's the ICO that needs to be translated, not the website. It still ended up being the biggest number. This is the distribution of our coins. So we have a reserve that we're going to be selling ourselves, and then we have 33 million of the first ICO total supply. We had 5 stages of bonuses throughout the ICO. In the first 3 days, the people got 20% more Adelphoi. Next week, there was 15%, then 10, then 5, and then 0. And then in the last week, we did a final bonus of anybody that invests more than 4 Bitcoins will top up all of their bonuses to 20%. That's basically why we got up to $1 million, because we systematically incentivized every week participation. And then, because we went for a vote, we basically said, okay, we're not going to, we created a white paper 11 in terms of changing slightly the structure and fixed the value of the initial coin at 7 cent euros. But it required us to go for a vote, and those that voted on the project would get another 20%. So this was a post-ICO bonus if you voted on white paper 11. They were voting on white paper 11 and the activation of the company. So they got another 20% Adelphoi for that. But what it did was it created a reserve for us. So now we have almost 10 million Adel to even seed more money from this initial 33 million. And that seed, as we start selling the coin, will then seed the money into the project. So we facilitated this ability to create more seed capital. My business partner, Michael Vavrik, he's this very clever guy, a finance guy. He basically said, okay, this is what we need to do. I said, great. I kind of massaged it. I'm the massaging guy. He's the guy, and I like to massage things. So we massaged it into this plan, and it's great because the other aspect I didn't mention about ICOs is that there's the trust issue of trusting the people that are running this platform. In order for us to release funds, we need 6 people to approve. So all this money that we would generate from the reserve will go into escrow, which will go specifically into the capital for the projects. And it's all about diversifying the portfolio. We want to have a diverse portfolio of finance projects, fintech, basically medical projects, ICT, information communication technology. Internet of Things is a great platform for incubating projects using the asset of the blockchain. For us, it's about brain power, it's about your passion, your investment, and we think that's a winning strategy because you basically have people that are creating these projects from scratch, from nothing, building the business plan together, potentially being employed in them, being an investor in them. We think that's a great formula for success. The passion aspect is a big one because it's not just about working for a company, it's working for a company that you created. protecting the project. So we have this 2 Bitcoin minimum, we have InfoSec policy, and we have this community code. And like I said, that's mitigating the risks in terms of moles in the ecosystem that are going to steal the projects. But what we think is that even if this doesn't do what we need in terms of mitigating the risk, there's this part. We think that we're going to be the speed train compared to people that even if they copy the details from our wiki, they're not going to have the resources to get these projects out. We're going to be so fast to market. Even if they do copy it, they'll be 9 months after us, or a year. Last slide, I'm finished. We're Innovation Incubator, and we hope that you learned something today. So thanks a lot for listening.